Hey, what's up, guys? You are tuned in to the Steel City Spiel podcast. My name is Nick Berlansky, and today we're going to talk about the Pittsburgh Penguins Eastern Conference Finals up until and through Game 4. As of right now, the series is tied at 2, which is basically where we want to be at this point, looking at the 4 games that we've played. The first thing I kind of want to talk about is Chris Letang. We've been missing him since the regular season with his neck injury and his neck surgery. A lot of people, once they saw that he was out, started saying the Penguins had no chance of winning the Cup. They had no chance of repeating without their top defenseman. Going into the playoffs, I didn't agree with that at all. I thought the defensemen we have a solid 8 defensemen going into the playoffs, I thought, with the 6 we had there, and Ruhwedel and Streit coming on in relief. As of right now, it looks like Ruhwedel has a concussion from last game. We'll get into that incident. It looks like Schultz is still dealing with that shoulder injury. I'm not sure if he's going to play in Game 5. But I'm still confident if we plug Streit in where Ruhwedel was, that he can pick up the game and that they'll do well with those 6 in. And I thought they've done well so far without Letang. It is hurting. You can tell that the defense is a little bit slower. The power play is a little bit shoddy without him. But I think Daly and when he's healthy, Schultz have been really well in relief in the power play. I think it is a difficult feat, like I said, when he first got injured or when he first got announced that he was not coming back in for the playoffs. It's a difficult thing to do, to repeat without your best defenseman, but I still believe, like I did back then, that we can do it and we can pull it off. Right now it's a best-of-3 series with the Senators, and we'll see where it goes. Something else I wanted to talk about. In this series, a big storyline has been Craig Anderson. He's played phenomenally through all 4 games. Like last game, of course, he had a couple of miscues with the Olli Maatta goal, leaving the post early, the unfortunate bounce off Phaneuf's foot. But we'll get more and talk in depth into Game 4 later. But other than that, he's really shut down the Penguins. He's had some luck with posts, but he's played as well as you can ask a goalie to play for the Senators, and as well as the Senators could have ever asked Craig Anderson to play. Coming into the series, I know he played well against the Bruins and the Rangers, but still, history serves best. Whenever we play Craig Anderson, we usually light the lamp pretty well, and he's done a good job of kind of shutting everybody up who said that before the series started. All right, let's start at the beginning, obviously, with Game 1. Game 1 was kind of like a feeling out process for both teams, as Game 1s in series usually are, but you could tell it was a little bit more this series for the Penguins than it was for the Senators, because the Penguins had, coming into the series, we're looking at that 1-3-1 defense that the Sens run, and they run it really well. They really struggled to break through that in the first game, and obviously you could tell they only scored 1 goal in that game. They only scored 1 goal in the first 3 games. The Penguins also, in the first period of Game 1, were 0 for 4 on the power play, finished the night 0 for 5. That was a big problem, and a lot of people were upset about that because, when you have guns like Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Phil Kessel, Justin Schultz even, and down low Patrick Hornqvist in Game 1, you expect to put the puck in the net at least 20% of the time, and they went 0 for 5 in Game 1, and that was huge because those were the chances that you don't have to worry about trying to break through the 1-3-1. You just have to set your power play up and go, and usually that's when the Penguins take advantage, but in Game 1 they didn't, and it hurt them because those were several chances in the first period to break through, score that first goal, and put the pressure on the Sens and kind of make them break up their 1-3-1. For most of the rest of the game, though, I thought the Penguins controlled the puck really well. I thought they controlled the game. The Sens kind of sat back on defense, which you expected the Sens to do because that's what they've done the first 2 rounds. The Penguins were doing pretty well. They still got outshot, but that's the kind of the story of the playoffs. The Penguins don't outshoot teams very often. Malkin had that goal late in the third period, which was a tip goal. That's basically the only way they've been able to beat Craig Anderson. They haven't really been able to beat him with straight-on shots. In overtime, it was just kind of bad puck luck. It's good puck luck for Bobby Ryan, bad puck luck for the Penguins, as the puck just kind of squirted past the defenseman, and Ryan picked it up. He got into a foot race with Maatta, and it's no secret that Olli Maatta is not the fastest skater that we have by any means, and not even close. But I thought he closed the gap pretty well for his speed, and Bobby Ryan just kind of beat him and put a perfect shot over Fleury's shoulder. Another story of Game 1 was posts. We hit the post 3 times and the crossbar once. Those are the things you have to finish on. You can't really win a game when you hit the post 3 times, the crossbar once, and only put the puck in the net once. But other than that, I thought the Pens played a pretty good game one. I was not nervous after game one. I kind of just sat there and was like, well, we lost game one last year 3-1 and looked absolutely horrible. So losing game one this year in overtime in a game where we controlled the puck most of the time, I wasn't really nervous. I was still confident in the team, obviously. It's game one. It's a 7-game series for a reason. Moving on to game two. Ottawa still sat back on D through all of game two, even more than they did in the first game, which was surprising to me. I thought being up one game, they'd break it down a little bit more, but I guess they stuck to their guns with Guy Boucher. The Pens put out their best period, I think, of the series in period 3. And I still think that's the best period they've played in the entire series, period 3 of game 2. They were physical. They were forechecking well, which is something that it looks like that's going to be the ingredient for success against the Senators, is you're going to need to forecheck and get in on their D and pressure them and force turnovers. And that's what they did in period 3. They played physical. They ended up breaking through with that goal. Phil Kessel off the rebound off the block shot, and they ended up winning the game 1-0 and tied the series. Second game, they were 0 for 1 in the power play, so yeah, again, they didn't score in the power play, but they only had one shot or one opportunity, so that's not that big of a deal, really. Pittsburgh outshot Ottawa in this game, which, like I said before, is not a common thing in these playoffs. That's the first time Pittsburgh has outshot any opponent since round 1 against the Blue Jackets. We did not outshoot Washington in any of the 7 games. We did not outshoot Ottawa in the first game of the series. So it was weird. Haven't seen that in a while. But again, Craig Anderson stood on his head. This is a game that should have finished 4 or 5-0. He kind of stood on his head. Between that, we hit a couple more posts. Gensel skyrocketed one from right in front of the net that if he would have brought down at all, it probably would have been a goal. The Penguins just weren't finishing on opportunities and got lucky that they came out with a win this game. Ottawa stayed back way too much. I don't think until the last 5 minutes of the game did Ottawa actually start putting pressure on Marc-Andre Fleury and the Pens defense. So that obviously, the first game, they found a good balance between staying back and attacking. In the second game, they just kind of stayed back a little too much, and it cost them a game, and that's why the series was tied up. Another big storyline for game 2 was the Kessel and Malkin bench storyline with the yelling back and forth. More Kessel than it was Malkin. There was the one quote of Malkin yelling with Sullivan in his ear, which this is why I like Mike Sullivan. He'll talk to Malkin, he'll settle him down, and he knows when not to yell and when not to argue and when to settle down his star players. Malkin was getting frustrated, and so was Kessel, and so was most of the team, honestly. You could tell most of the team was getting frustrated because they're playing the Senators, and the Senators like to frustrate opponents, and it's what they do. They've bought into Guy Boucher's system better than I've seen any team in the past, I would say 5 years, buy into a defensive system. It's amazing because you think of players like Bobby Ryan, you think of Mike Hoffman, you think of Erik Karlsson, and you don't normally think these are guys that would like to stay in the defensive zone and just stay home and play that defense and wait for their opportunity, but they really have, and they bought into that system, and that's why they're here. They deserve to be in the Eastern Conference Finals because they've bought into his system. And it's the same reason why people wonder why Bobby Ryan struggled throughout the season. It probably took him a while to adjust. He's an offensive brand hockey player playing in a defensive system. It's going to take time to adjust to that system, and you saw that last year with Phil Kessel. At the beginning of the season, Phil was scoring a lot, and then when Mike Sullivan came around, Phil struggled a little bit. Whereas, obviously, Sid took off. We know that storyline, but Phil struggled a little bit until he got into the system, and once he got into the system, obviously he flourished, but it just takes time for these players to switch systems, especially the star players. The better they are, the better they're at scoring. If they have a niche, it's going to be harder for them to switch systems. I think Ottawa, at this point in time, has completely bought in every single player down through the lineup, and I think it's great for them, and it's great for their team, and it's going to be difficult to beat them when they do that because everybody's on the same page. But back to the Kessel-Malkin storyline, I thought it was entertaining. I don't think Kessel was really yelling at Malkin as much as he was talking to himself. I know some people thought that, Kessel's yelling at Malkin, Kessel's yelling at Kunitz, who's their other line mate. But at the same time, you look at it, and it just kind of looks like he was talking to himself, which I can understand. Kessel's a weird character. I've come to learn this over the past 2 years that he's played for the Penguins. But yeah, what a better way to end that storyline than him scoring the only goal of the game and embracing that goal with his line mate, Evgeny Malkin. It was a really funny, really good story, and that it's kind of the storyline of Game 2. Every game tells a story in the playoffs, and that was the overlying story of that. Whether people think that now Kessel's a bad influence or a bad guy in the locker room, anybody that says that really either doesn't pay attention to the Penguins enough or is just seeing that and making a snap judgment, because from what I've heard and what I've seen, Phil Kessel's nothing but a great teammate. Obviously, they have the joke, great guy, tries hard, loves the game. I don't think they're lying about that. He really does seem like a good guy. People that think that he's a bad guy in the locker room just because of what they saw in Game 2 on the bench, you're blowing it out of proportion. I thought it was a great storyline. I thought it was hilarious. You could even see Kunitz laughing at Kessel sometimes when he was yelling, which I'm the biggest critic of Chris Kunitz, but it's hard not to like the guy the way he's been playing. He doesn't score goals really much anymore. He's kind of lost his hands, but he plays physical. He plays with hustle, and he comes back on defense, makes the plays he needs to, and he's a good leader. And as much as I've said it several times, I do like Matt Cullen a little bit more than I like Chris Kunitz, but it's getting harder and harder to argue with Chris Kunitz having that A on his chest. He is a good leader. He kind of deserves the A whether he's scoring goals or not. Now it's time to move on to Game 3. Yeah, it was a rough game. Ottawa attacked right out of the bat, scoring 47 seconds into the game off of that bank shot off the back. Fleury couldn't get to the post in time. Puck's in the back of the net. Definitely not the way you want to start a road game in Ottawa. The first home game for Ottawa in the Eastern Conference Finals in just over 10 years. Their fans were hyped up for the game already, and they put that goal in, and they blew the roof off that place. Pittsburgh was caught flat-footed in that instance, and they really never caught balance. Because after that, about 10 minutes in, there was about a 2-minute and 15-second stretch. Ottawa scored 3 goals, and me watching the game at home, I was really caught off guard. I was speechless. That entire 2-minute span, I don't think I said a word. I was surprised. The Penguins looked surprised. And just from that moment on, you kind of felt dead. It was 4-0 in the first period. They yanked Fleury, put Murray in, which was, at that point, you're down 4-0. You need to stop the bleeding. Fleury deserves the world for what he's done in the playoffs. We're going to talk about that after we finish talking about Game 3. But at that point, yeah, you have to put Murray in. You have to stop the bleeding, something new, something to change it up, and maybe possibly claw back into that game. The big storyline going into that game was we were missing Schultz, Rust, Hornqvist. Those are 3 of the biggest performers in these playoffs that nobody talks about until they're gone. Nobody talks about Hornqvist and what he does until he's gone. Nobody really mentions Brian Rust until he's gone or until he scores a big Game 7 goal. And Justin Schultz has realistically been, in my opinion, our top D guy since Letang got injured. So missing those 3 is huge. And coming into this game, Mike Sullivan thought the answer was to go with 7 D-men. And instead of just replacing Schultz, replace him and then put somebody else in. Daly returned this game. This was Daly's first game back. And we threw Mark Streit in for his first game of the playoffs. And it didn't work at all. We tried to run 7 D-men. Of course, we were switching guys. You 2 go out, you 2 go out. There was no really set pairings. And I don't think the Penguins can do that. The Penguins have good defensemen. They have a good defensive system. They have a good coach in Jacques Martin. I don't think they can run the 7-man D system, because I think with the Penguins defensemen, they need to have that guy that they're working with throughout the game to know that person's specific tendencies, because you could see the D were all over the place. With switching guys, maybe you're with this guy on this shift and he won't jump up into the play, but you're with another guy the next shift and he does, and you're not expecting it, and that leaves a hole, and then there's a 2-on-1. I think that's the problem with the Penguins. They don't have defensemen that can really just haven't worked enough together with everybody to be able to just be thrown together on a line combination with somebody else and be able to handle it and be able to know what each other are ready and prepared to do. It's just something that some teams can't do. We couldn't do it. Like I said, our D-men are great, but our D-men I don't think have worked together enough with everybody in the defensive system that they can just be thrown with somebody randomly and be completely good with chemistry. It's something that you could see as soon as they came in. Matt Murray, He came in, played the majority of the second, third period. He gave up a goal, which some people were giving him crap for because he didn't poke check or go for that. That was one of the best goals, really, I think I've seen in this series. Was it Kyle Turris? The hands to make that play, to be able, in that tight of a situation, just to be able to pull it out and then finish it while being tripped, while being hooked. It's a great goal. You can't discount that goal just because Matt Murray didn't go for a poke check. You also do have to realize, and it's not good to give excuses, but that was Matt Murray's first game in roughly a month. Coming off of injury, sitting on the bench, being injured, not even skating at some points because it was a lower body injury. I'll give him that. I'll cut him some slack. In a game that we were down 4-0, he didn't go for a poke check. That's fine, because you know what? He played 2 periods of hockey, and he played solid. He looked like he did last year. And I would take the Matt Murray from last year any day of the week. So anybody who got on him for that goal, I don't. I'll give him the excuse that he was still a little green to the playoffs this year, because it was a great goal. You can't discount anything that they did on that goal. And the only other thing to look at is Sid and the power play finally got on board. And when you see that, you hope, I know it's not always how it works, but taking a page out of the broadcaster's handbook. He scored a goal that might get something started. That might just, putting it in the net for both the power play and for Sidney Crosby, might just light a spark that, hey, I remember how to do this again. And it just might set him off. As we look down into Game 4, it kind of did. So let's start talking about Game 4. Let's put Game 3 in the rear view. We were down 2-1 at that point. About noon yesterday, because yesterday was Game 4, as of when I'm recording this, the news broke that Matt Murray was starting Game 4. And all hell broke loose on Twitter. And you guys are passionate, and I love it because it makes me laugh. I could spend hours watching you guys argue over who should have started yesterday. In my opinion, it doesn't matter what we think. Mike Sullivan is 6-0 in playoff series with the Pittsburgh Penguins. 4-0 last year with a Stanley Cup. I don't need to remind you guys, the Stanley Cup last year. And not to mention 2-0 in series this playoffs against a 50-win, 3rd seed Columbus Blue Jackets and a President's Trophy winning Washington Capitals, with all the injuries that we have had along the way. So looking at that, I'm going to trust whatever Mike Sullivan does. And if you guys want to, make judgment calls, say, hey, it's horrible that you pulled Fleury for this, do I think it's fair that Fleury got pulled? No, it's not fair. He had one bad game, and realistically, the defense wasn't there to help him. He kind of got hung out to dry, but he didn't look great either. Is it fair? No. In hockey, is it always going to be fair? No. Sully trusted Matt Murray with that start last night more than he trusted Fleury. That's all it comes down to. He was more comfortable putting Matt Murray in than he was putting Fleury in. Who are we to judge that? Because as we look forward, it was a great call. And everybody that tweeted that they were mad, that they were pissed off, that Fleury was sitting on the bench. I saw somebody say if I was Marc-Andre Fleury, I would tell Sullivan to piss off. First of all, Fleury would never do that in the first place because, as we all know, Marc-Andre Fleury is one of the greatest teammates in all of sports, not just hockey, all of sports. The way he's handled everything in the past 2 years has been phenomenal, nothing short. But to see the same people after the game commending Sullivan for putting Murray in just blew my mind. 72, 4, and 17. Hornqvist, Schultz, Rust, still out yesterday. Did that scare me? A little bit. Yeah, after seeing what happened in Game 3 without the 3 of them, yeah, a little part of me was like, yeah, that's not good. None of them back. As of right now, they're still all day-to-day for Game 5, too. So we will preview Game 5 at the end of this. We had a lot of lineup changes going into the game yesterday. Not only was Josh Archibald plugged in, Mark Streit scratched, going back to the 6-man D, which I thought was, again, like I said earlier, 7-man D does not look like it will work for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Streit out. They kept Ruhwedel in. That's fine. Archibald in. Kunitz to the top line. Sheary dropped to the third with Bonino. They also threw Scott Wilson onto the second line with Malkin and Kessel, which I thought was very interesting and I thought was a great idea because Scott Wilson has played tremendously in games 2 through 4. He played all right in game 1. He kind of played, he didn't stand out in game 1. As of right now, I think Scott Wilson, and you can quote me on this, Scott Wilson is playing the best series I've ever seen from a player without scoring a single point. He's putting together the best series of a single player that I've seen lately without scoring a single point. And that might change because he's on the second line now with Malkin and Kessel. And obviously Malkin's leading the league in scoring. And Kessel, we all know how good he is at putting the puck in the net. But I think he deserved to be on the second line. I think it was a great call. And I think as long as Scott Wilson keeps playing the way he is, he's playing physical, he's forechecking, he's being annoying to forwards and defensemen on the Ottawa Senators, he's playing tremendously. From somebody that in the Washington series, we were arguing whether or not he should be in the lineup. I think he definitely deserves to be on that second line right now with Malkin and Kessel. He's playing nothing short of outstanding playoff hockey. And it's infectious because that line was probably our best line last night. The Wilson, Malkin, and Kessel line. They played physical. Malkin's played more physical, which is hard to say because Malkin has been extremely physical in this series, both before the whistle ends and after it blows, which is not always a good thing. But with Scott Wilson on his line yesterday, it just looked like there was another step for all three of them, and it's great. It was a great change. Like I said, Josh Archibald was in. I thought he played well. He was playing fast. He was playing physical on that fourth line. The fourth line was Hagelin, Archibald, and Cullen, which was actually really good, which was surprising. And when I saw that, I was kind of upset because if anybody knows me personally, I'm a Carl Hagelin fan, got his jersey and that. I really like Hagelin. I like the way he plays. He plays fast. That line, as soon as I saw that was the fourth line, I didn't expect to see them playing much other than the penalty kill. But they actually got a lot of ice time, and it was due to the fact that when they went on the ice, they made the most of their minutes, and they played well. You even saw Josh Archibald jump up onto the first line with Sid Crosby, and he played well there. He stepped in well, and he played well, and as of right now, he deserves to be in there. And if Rust is still out, obviously I would prefer Rust over Archibald just because of he's been there, he has the experience, he's a big playoff performer. I'm comfortable with Archibald right now. He played as well as you can expect. He's done well. The first period last night was evenly played. It was kind of back and forth, chance by chance. Matt Murray played amazing, including a very good pad save in the first period where he kicked out into a split, made the save. It was probably the biggest save he made all night, but he got tested in that first period. And for everybody that was doubting him, saying, oh, Fleury should have started, Fleury deserves to start, he shut him up real quick. He played an outstanding first period, and so did Craig Anderson. Anderson played the way he's been playing the entire series until the last minute. Crosby comes down the right side, dishes it over to Mata. Mata does one of his waiting moves, just, the little tiny fake, and goes around the defenseman, which he does very well. That's an underrated skill. Him with the puck going forward is actually quite impressive. Now, him with the puck going backwards, that's a different story. Him in his own zone, that's a different story. We know he's still a little rough around the edges and back there. But him in the offensive zone, when he wants to, can be such a good offensive skater with the puck. He still makes bad decisions sometimes. But there are glimpses that he just takes the puck and goes. And it's great to see. And obviously yesterday he did it. And he threw the puck at the net, whether he saw Anderson cheating or he was just throwing it at the net to see if a rebound could be created or if he could squeak it through. It worked. Ole Mata scores his first career playoff goal, and the Penguins are up 1-0. Anybody who does Pens Predictor, if you predicted that, all credit to you, because I would never have put Ole Mott down to score the first goal in any game against the Senators after watching the first 3 games. So that was a huge goal at the last minute of the period. Goals in the last minute of the period in any hockey game are important, especially the playoffs though. You score a goal in the last minute of a period in the playoffs, that is a huge momentum boost, whether it is 0-0 or, as we learn later, if it's 3-1. So we go into the second period, down shorthanded obviously, for a good bit of the second period. We started the second period with 1.5 minutes, I think, to kill on the Cole penalty with the Ruhwedel hit. We'll talk about that a little bit later after we're done talking about the penalty kill. Cole took another penalty. It was an interference call. It was a little ticky-tacky, but at the same time, he got in his way. Am I saying Zach Smith could have stayed on his feet? Yeah, Zach Smith could have stayed on his feet. He's a professional hockey player. But in that moment, he went down. It wasn't embellishment by any means. I just think he went down a little easier than a professional hockey player could go down. It was a penalty, but the Penguins killed it. And then they took another penalty later in the period and killed it as well. The second penalty kill, when Ian Cole, our team leader in block shots, is sitting in the penalty box, and Ottawa did not get a shot on goal, and Pittsburgh got 2 shorthanded shots on goal, or not on goal, 2 shorthanded opportunities, including a Matt Cullen slapper from in between the dots that went about 3 inches wide. That, in my opinion, was the turning point, because that gave the Penguins the energy and the momentum to turn around and score 2 more goals, which would eventually be the second goal and then the game-winning goal from Brian Dumoulin / Dion Phaneuf. Thank you, by the way, Pylon. That penalty kill was the best thing I think I've seen this entire series. The best period they've played was still the third period of Game 2, but that penalty kill was the biggest part of this series so far for the Pittsburgh Penguins. And the penalty kill ended up 4 for 4 last night. Ottawa's power play is struggling. So was ours, but now we've scored 2 power play goals in the last 2 games. So ours is heating up. Ottawa's is still out. That could play a major role in these last 3 games. But let's go back to the Bobby Ryan, Chad Ruhwedel hit and the Ian Cole penalty. When I saw the hit in full speed, my knee-jerk reaction, like every Pens fan knee-jerk reaction would be, was, that's illegal. That's a penalty. We're on the power play. If not 2. If not 2 penalties, because he took the slash, or it was a high stick. He took the high stick going into the boards and then lost his balance, and then Bobby Ryan flew in, hit him with what appeared to be the elbow. He hit him with the elbow and put him down. And then Cole obviously did not like that. That was his defensive partner, so immediately, without any hesitation, Cole had the gloves off and was taking Bobby Ryan down. I like that. I would take that penalty 9 times out of 10. In the playoffs, when you're up 1-0, it's a little iffy, but at the same time, it's something that we usually don't see as Penguins fans. We usually don't see somebody, unless it is Ian Cole, standing up for our own players as much as other teams. It happens every once in a while, but every other team, this happens every time somebody gets ran. And Chad Ruhwedel did get run yesterday. Bobby Ryan blasted him. So it was nice to see Ian Cole, and yes, he deserves a penalty. He dropped the gloves. He took down Ryan. Ryan was not fighting back. So yes, it's going to be a roughing call. Where everybody else got upset is that was the only call on the play. Sullivan was upset as well, and understandably, his player was hurt. He saw it in fast motion. Like I said, knee jerk. Everybody. That was illegal. But looking at it in slow motion, and I watched this play several times. I watched this play probably 10 minutes straight, because after I saw it the first time in slow motion, yes, there was a high stick, but there was also a slash right before the Ole Mott goal a minute prior that Chris Kunitz had on Erik Karlsson that they didn't call. And they knew it. Erik Karlsson has not been shy about telling the refs when he's not happy with their work in this series. And he said that, and they probably ended up seeing the replay, because I was watching Hockey Night in Canada. They definitely showed that replay several times after the Pens goal, probably more than they actually showed the puck going into the net. So yes, the refs were probably aware that they missed a call. So the high stick, it's a makeup call. I know it's not good to say that refs do makeup calls in the playoffs, but it's the NHL playoffs. It's the NHL refs. They're going to do makeup calls. It happens in the regular season. It's going to happen in the playoffs. I'm fine with that not being called. Was it a high sticking? Yeah, it was a high sticking, but it's the playoffs. So it's still ticky-tacky a little bit, and they had to make a makeup call because they missed a call that led to a goal. And in this series, where the Pittsburgh Penguins had only scored 3 goals coming into this game, that's a huge missed call for the Senators. Now, the Bobby Ryan hit, I look at it this way. Was it a charge? No, because he stopped actually moving his feet and just glided from the dot in. So no, you can't say it was a charge. He hit him very quickly. It was very fast. And he was going into him very fast. He did not try to avoid him at all. He was finishing off his hit, which was fine. There was no interference. Ruhwedel had the puck. Did he hit him with the elbow? Yes. From what I saw, he hit him in the head, about the nose area, right in the middle of the face, with his elbow. But like the Phaneuf hit with Rust in Game 2, he really didn't extend his elbow. He kind of just ran through him. His elbow really didn't extend. It kind of stayed down. The wing stayed down a little bit. And he never really extended it. So you can't call that. It couldn't be elbowing. Now, other people are mad because they said he left his feet. And yeah, looking at the replays, he did leave his feet. But you have to remember in full motion. And I am a Pens fan through and through. But seeing that and looking at it after my obvious anger of my player being concussed and taken out and another defenseman being injured, if you look at it from an unbiased standpoint and you ask anybody that's not a Penguins and or Senators fan, because there's going to be bias on either side, and I'm trying to stay as unbiased as I can while I look at this play. His feet didn't leave the ice until either the second he hit him or a millisecond before he hit him. So if it was a millisecond before, technically in the rule book, it is illegal to leave your feet before you make contact on a hit. But at the same time, at full speed, it was so close that it's going to be hard to call. And a call like that, to be called on leaving your feet on a hit for a dangerous hit, it has to be blatant. Especially in the playoffs, it has to be extremely blatant that you left your feet in an attempt to injure a player. There were several times in the Washington series where Tom Wilson blatantly left his feet. I'm not going to say he was looking to injure somebody, but it looked like a bad hit. And he left his feet. And it wasn't called because that's not a call that's going to be commonly made unless it is completely obvious that you are trying and attempting to injure somebody on the other team. And I don't think it was that blatant, especially on the Ryan hit. So in my opinion, the hit was clean. It's unfortunate that Ruhwedel's going to have a concussion. He might not be back for Game 5. He's not been ruled out yet. But if he is, you expect either Schultz may be returning. He's still day-to-day. And if not, you expect Mark Streit to step in. And I'm comfortable with Mark Streit stepping into that position. But that was the big storyline of this game, was the Ryan Ruhwedel hit. And in my opinion, that hit was 100% clean. Did he hit him with the elbow? Yes, but did his elbow stay in? Mostly. It came out a little bit, but that's just reactionary. We gave up a goal late in the second period, actually, which gave Ottawa life. I don't think if they would have scored that goal, it would have even finished 3-2. It might have finished 3-1 in that game if Ottawa does not score that goal, because their fans were dead. Ottawa was shot. A team that they had only given up 3 goals in 3 games is up on them 3-0 late in the second period. And they are a team that sure has come back several times in these playoffs, that has struggled to find the back of the net in their own right. They scored 2 goals in Game 1. They were shut out in Game 2. And in Game 3, yes, they lit the lamp a lot, but they also caught the Penguins flat-footed. So it's a team that needed a goal, and they got one. And that brought the fans back into the building. It was It was a very good pass by Bobby Ryan. I think if anything we're seeing in this series, it's that Bobby Ryan is one of the most important talents on the Ottawa Senators and probably one of the best talents in the NHL. Coming into the series, a lot of people did not think the Senators should be there because the Senators aren't usually highlighted, especially in Canada. In Canada, even though Ottawa is the capital city of Canada, Montreal is highlighted. Edmonton was highlighted with McDavid and his Art Ross winning season. Toronto with Austin Matthews and all the young guns they had, they got even more than Ottawa when it comes to spotlight. But Ottawa's the team that made it to the conference finals. And now you're actually starting to see the spotlight on him, and Bobby Ryan, in these bright lights, is showing up. And he's playing one hell of a series. That pass, no look, while injured, he also, right before that, took a puck to the face. It rode up his stick and hit him in the face. He came back with a no-look pass to Clark MacArthur for the goal, which was the reason that they were in that game. So you look at the third period now. The Pittsburgh Penguins did what the Pittsburgh Penguins always do, and it pisses me off every single time. 2-goal lead going into the third period, and we break down into a shell, which I'm not sure if this is what Sullivan wants or if this is just how the Penguins end up playing. Yes, I agree. You're up 2 goals. Dump the puck in deep and chase it. The problem with that is the Penguins do not chase when they're up 2 goals in the third period as much as they are to chase when they are tied in the second period or even up 2 goals in the second period. They were skating slower. They weren't hitting. They weren't forechecking nearly as much as they were, and I get that it's hard to forecheck at that pace for 60 minutes. But to not do it for an entire 20 minutes in the third period of a game that is damn near must win sickens me. Watching that third period, I could not help but think, we are playing a team that has come back from 3-goal deficits, 2-goal deficits in the third period. I watched it personally against the Rangers several times. If we sit back, there's a chance we blow this game. I trust Matt Murray, but at the same time, anything can happen, bounces can happen, and look what happened. Their second goal deflected twice, if not 3 times. It looked like twice to me. They said 3 times on the broadcast. I'm not sure where the third deflection was, but either way, it went in and it's a goal, and it was deflected twice. Murray, you can't really, he didn't see it off the bat. It's an Erik Karlsson shot that he could not see, and it was deflected by 2 different Senators in 2 opposite directions. I don't blame a lot on the defense. That's just a shot that had seeing eyes and made it into the back of the net, and that's why it was a 1-goal game. They scored with 5:01 left in the game, and boy, did I breathe about 5 or 6 times in the last 5 minutes. I'm obviously exaggerating, but it was tense. 5 minutes of, if they score, I'm not sure how we rebound and win this game. But they didn't. The horn sounded. The defense made 8 or 9 block shots in the last 5 minutes. Matt Murray made 4 or 5 outstanding saves. And the series is tied at 2. So after all of this that we've talked about, we basically had a clean slate in a best-of-3 series. 2 out of 3 possibly being at home at PPG Paints, where we know the Penguins love to play, for the Eastern Conference Finals, for a chance at the Stanley Cup Finals. This is why we watch hockey, guys. Best of 3, they've beaten us twice. We've beaten them twice. Their defensive system has worked. Their defensive system has imploded. Our defense has looked god-awful. Our defense has looked amazing. Our power play has looked horrible. Our power plays looked great. Craig Anderson has made mistakes. Fleury and Murray have both made mistakes. They've also both played very well at several times throughout this series. And now it's down to best of 3. I'm excited. I know you guys are excited. It's time to defend the cup. Something else I wanted to talk about real quick before we go. I talked about how good Scott Wilson has played and how happy I am for Scott Wilson. And it's starting to make me worried because Scott Wilson will probably be one of those players that is available come the expansion draft. And seeing him play like this, I don't want him to go. I don't want any of our players really to go in the expansion draft. But seeing Scott Wilson play with this much enthusiasm and just physical, for his size especially. Most of our players are undersized, yes. But he is taking it to Phaneuf. He's taking it to Carlson. It doesn't matter who on their team is there. Scott Wilson is laying a body check, and they are going to feel it, and I love it. The other thing I wanted to talk about that not many people really talk about until he's injured, and I'm sad that I'm kind of falling into that right now. Patrick Hornqvist might be, if you take out Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin, he might be the most important Pittsburgh Penguin. You see the way they play with him in there. You see the way he plays when he's in there. And you see the way that the game changes when he's not there. Especially on the power play. Jake Gensel has done great on the power play. He's had chances. He's hit the post several times. I would love to see Gensel score a goal. Because he has been one of the best goal scorers in these playoffs. But he's just not been able to find it. He's hit the post 3 times in this series alone. Hit the post 3 times, skyrocketed and opened net the other time. He just needs to find the back of the net again. And if he does that and starts hitting his spots, this series could be over very quickly. Because he has had the chances. He's created the chances. Not only has he just taken it from Sid, it's not all Sid. Gensel has created his own chances several times. If he starts finding a way to finish his play, it's going to be scary because he's going to be putting the puck in the back of the net a couple times a game. But Hornqvist on the power play, when you see our umbrella power play with Kessel to whoever's in there, Daly, Straight, Schultz, and then Malkin and Sid down low, Hornqvist sticks out front. And he draws people to him. Whether it be one person, sometimes I've seen 2 people have to try to get down there and get him out of there. The goalie hates him. I've heard people from other markets, fans of other teams that do podcasts, they call him a rat bastard. That's what he is. He's an asshole in front of the net. He's not moving, and he's great with deflections. So on our power play, yeah, we're missing him. Guess what? He also forechecks just as hard as anybody else on our team. After the whistle, he's getting into other people's sides. He's a thorn in people's sides. He draws way more penalties than you would imagine if you actually paid attention. Like, if you actually pay attention, Hornqvist draws a penalty at least once a game, if not once every other game. And right now, yeah, they're missing him. Upper body injury. I'm not sure. I'm not positive if it's still him dealing with the cut under his eye. I don't think it is. I think it's something with his shoulder or his wrist. But the Penguins, whenever he comes back into the lineup, the Penguins will have a decided advantage. Because with Hornqvist, the Pittsburgh Penguins are a completely different team than without him. And I can't wait to have him. I can't wait to have him, Rust, and Schultz back. After last game, do we need them back? Needs a very strong word. But I would say yes, we technically do need all 3 of them back. We do need Mr. Elimination, Brian Rust. You know, you saw what he did against Washington. You saw what he did last year against Tampa Bay in Game 7, Eastern Conference Finals. And we need Schultz back because he's been our best defenseman this season without Letang. Scores goals, plays great defensively, can honestly play with anybody. He's, of all of our defensemen, he's the one defenseman that can play with anybody else in our system and kind of just send them out there and go. So I'm looking forward to those guys coming back. Game 5 is tomorrow at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That place is going to be loud. That place is going to be excited at PPG. This is our chance to take our first series lead of this year's Eastern Conference Finals. Sidney Crosby had 2 points yesterday, including a goal. He's had a goal in 2 straight games. We've had power play goals in 2 straight games. I feel like an avalanche is coming. It has to come at some point. They're all playing well. They're starting to find holes in that 1-3-1. But if they could just burst through tomorrow, it would be so huge. Yes, we came back from down 3-2 last year. but I would rather not put that kind of stress on any of the team or any of the fans, because we do have a very delicate fan base, as you could see after Game 3. So, Game 5 tomorrow, be ready. If you're going to the game, get loud, get rowdy, get in the Sens' heads. And if you're not going to the game, plop down in front of your couch and be loud anyway. Because that's what the playoffs are about. That's what the Eastern Conference Finals are about. Now, if you enjoyed this podcast, go ahead and hit the like button. If you really enjoyed this podcast, come on and hit the subscribe button up top. And if you want to follow us on Twitter for more information and for more analytics, it's at Steel City Spiel on Twitter. That's SteelCitySpiel. Thanks, guys, and go Pens.